past, I've had a whole bunch of partners down the line. I had incredible partners like, ooh yeah, the Macho Man Randy Savage.
Behind the glitz and grandeur of WWE's biggest star lies a story far more complicated than the spotlight reveals. Hulk Hogan wasn't just a wrestling icon. He was a symbol of an era, a man whose larger-than-life persona captivated millions. But beneath that fame, WWE's polished image sometimes struggled to mask the realities of Hogan's career, the controversies, backstage politics, and personal struggles that shaped him. From his secret steroid use to fractured relationships with fellow wrestlers, the untold stories reveal a human being grappling with the pressures of fame, loyalty, and ambition. This isn't just the story WWE told the world. It's the truth they tried to keep in the shadows. The king of wrestling's golden era. For anyone who grew up in the 1980s and early 1990s, Hulk Hogan wasn't just a wrestler. He was the wrestler. With his unmistakable handlebar mustache, yellow and red gear, and electric charisma, Hogan became the face of professional wrestling at a time when the industry was exploding into the mainstream. His catchphrases like, "What you gonna do when Hulkamania runs wild on you?" weren't just slogans. They were battle cries for a generation of fans who saw Hogan as the ultimate hero. He brought wrestling from smoky arenas into millions of living rooms across America and around the world. Hogan's influence wasn't limited to the ring. He became a pop culture icon. From body-slamming giants in WWF main events to trading blows with Sylvester Stallone in Rocky III, he blurred the lines between sports and entertainment. Commercials, cartoons, action figures, you name it, Hogan was on it. He stood for more than victory. He symbolized strength, loyalty, and fighting for what's right. During his prime, Hulk Hogan was the centerpiece of WWE's golden era, a larger-than-life figure who didn't just carry the company, he carried the dreams of millions who believed in the power of Hulkamania. Wrestling's new generation and Hogan's contested legacy. As wrestling evolved, newer stars like Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and The Rock emerged, capturing the imagination of younger audiences and broadening WWE's appeal beyond just the traditional wrestling fan base. These stars became household names in the 1990s and 2000s, crossing over into music, movies, and pop culture in ways Hogan never quite managed to replicate. Yet despite their success, no one could quite replace Hogan's legacy. To many, he remains the original wrestling superstar, the trailblazer who set the standard for charisma, athleticism, and showmanship. But over time, Hogan's legacy became entangled with a series of scandals and controversies that overshadowed his in-ring accomplishments. As the years went on, the WWE struggled to manage the fallout from these incidents, often caught between protecting their golden goose and facing public backlash. The 2015 fallout, WWE's unforgiving stand. The turning point for Hogan's career with WWE came in 2015, a year marked by public scandal and professional exile. Though Hogan had a history of on and off relationships with WWE, his dismissal in 2015 was swift and unambiguous. The catalyst was a 2007 incident that suddenly resurfaced in the spotlight. During a high-profile court case involving the publication of a private sex tape, an audio recording was submitted as evidence. In this recording, Hogan was heard making deeply offensive racist remarks about the possibility of his daughter dating a black man. The tape revealed Hogan using racial slurs, even uttering the N-word and stating, "I guess we're all a little racist." The public and media reaction was instantaneous and fierce. Wrestling fans, entertainment critics, and social justice advocates condemned Hogan's remarks as hateful and unacceptable. For WWE, a company increasingly conscious of its public image and committed to diversity, the response was clear. Hogan was fired, and the company took swift action to distance itself from him. His profile was scrubbed from the WWE website, references to him were removed from promotional materials, and in a rare move, Hogan was effectively erased from the WWE Hall of Fame page. Hogan's apology and the road to redemption. In the wake of the controversy, Hogan publicly apologized. He described the 2007 comments as the biggest mistake of his life, expressing regret and a desire to learn from the experience. Hogan explained that the remarks were made during a particularly difficult period in his life and did not reflect his true beliefs. Still, the damage was done. Many fans turned away, and Hogan's once untarnished reputation took a serious hit. The scandal sparked broader conversations about race, accountability, and the consequences public figures face when their private prejudices are exposed. Despite the backlash, WWE eventually reinstated Hogan into the Hall of Fame in July 2018, signaling a tentative reconciliation. Later that year, Hogan made an on-screen return as the host of WWE's Crown Jewel event, marking his fifth return to the company. This comeback was met with mixed emotions, nostalgia from longtime fans, but lingering skepticism from critics. Behind the curtain, wrestlers' real feelings about Hogan. While Hogan's larger-than-life persona captivated fans worldwide, his relationships backstage were often fraught with tension and rivalry. Not everyone in the wrestling world was a fan of the Hulkster. One of Hogan's most notable critics was Randy "Macho Man" Savage. Savage, a charismatic and volatile figure himself, harbored deep resentment towards Hogan, particularly regarding his real-life marriage to Miss Elizabeth. Savage believed Hogan had played a part in the unraveling of his marriage, accusing him and Hogan's then-wife Linda of meddling in Elizabeth's life and convincing her that Savage was controlling and jealous. The story was complex and emotionally charged. Despite personal differences, Hogan and Savage had an undeniable chemistry inside the ring. As the Mega Powers, they formed one of the most popular tag teams in the 1980s, thrilling audiences with their dynamic partnership. But off-screen, their relationship was a roller coaster, fluctuating between friendship and fierce rivalry. The Mega Powers explode. Wrestling drama mirrors real life. Their on-screen partnership eventually crumbled, in part fueled by Savage's jealousy of Hogan's protective attitude toward Miss Elizabeth. At the 1989 Royal Rumble, Hogan accidentally eliminated Savage from the match, an incident that ignited real tension. This tension culminated in the iconic WrestleMania 5 match, The Mega Powers Explode, a storyline that blurred the lines between fiction and reality. Hogan won the bout, and the rivalry between the two legends was solidified, though their personal fallout ran deeper. Years later, Savage publicly accused Hogan and Linda of poisoning Elizabeth's mind and causing the couple's divorce. The situation escalated further when Hogan invited Elizabeth to join him and Linda during a movie shoot in Miami, leading to confrontations and accusations. Savage reportedly believed Hogan's intentions were far from innocent, even suggesting Hogan was responsible for a black eye he sustained at WrestleMania 9, which Hogan claimed was from a jet ski accident. Despite attempts at reconciliation before Savage's death in 2011, the bitterness lingered. Savage's harsh words in interviews left little doubt about his feelings toward Hogan, calling him a punk and denying any real friendship. This fractured relationship remains one of wrestling's most enduring backstage sagas. Steroids and the shadow of scandal. Long before these personal dramas surfaced, Hogan was caught in one of wrestling's earliest and most infamous controversies, the steroid scandal of the 1990s. The 90s were a turbulent time for professional wrestling, and steroids, referred to as juice, were widely used by performers seeking to maintain their larger-than-life physiques and aggressive personas. Steroids, synthetic versions of testosterone, helped athletes bulk up and sustain the powerhouse image that fans expected. Yet the health risks were significant, including heart problems, hormonal imbalances, and psychological effects. The scandal came to a head in 1994 during the trial of Vince McMahon, then head of the WWF, now WWE. The U.S. government accused McMahon of distributing steroids to wrestlers under his watch. The investigation uncovered that a Pennsylvania doctor had been supplying steroids illegally, with shipments directed to McMahon's Connecticut office. Hogan, who had publicly denied steroid use for years, was compelled to testify under oath. In a candid moment, Hogan admitted to using steroids for a decade during his career, starting in the 1970s to help sculpt the muscular physique that became his trademark. Hulk Hogan's steroid admission, a turning point in wrestling history. In the mid-1990s, the wrestling world was rocked by one of its biggest scandals, the federal steroid trial that exposed the dark underbelly of performance-enhancing drug use in the industry. Hulk Hogan, arguably wrestling's biggest star and its most recognizable icon, was thrust into the spotlight for reasons far beyond his charismatic presence in the ring. For years, Hogan had denied any involvement with steroids, but during his testimony, he shockingly admitted to having used them. This admission marked a watershed moment, not only for Hogan personally, but for the wrestling business as a whole. Hogan's revelation was not just a simple confession. It was a window into the widespread culture of steroid use that permeated professional wrestling during the 1980s. He candidly admitted that steroid use was fairly common among wrestlers during that era, a tacit acknowledgement of an open secret that many fans and insiders suspected but few had publicly confirmed. The admission highlighted the immense physical toll that the grueling schedules, brutal matches, and constant travel inflicted on these athletes, many of whom felt pushed to extremes just to keep their careers alive. What made Hogan's testimony particularly revealing was his description of how he obtained steroids. He mentioned placing orders through Vince McMahon's secretary with a Pennsylvania doctor who had since been convicted for illegally supplying steroids. Hogan was careful to distance McMahon from direct involvement, stating that Vince never asked him to use steroids nor supplied them himself. According to Hogan, he made the choice independently, motivated not by a desire to cheat or gain an unfair advantage, but rather to manage the countless injuries accumulated over years of relentless physical punishment. A polarizing figure. Backstage, Hogan strained relationships with fellow wrestlers. Beyond his steroid controversy, Hulk Hogan's backstage reputation among fellow wrestlers was notoriously fraught. Far from the universally beloved hero portrayed on television, Hogan had a complex and often difficult personality behind the scenes. His overwhelming popularity and near-mythic status gave him enormous influence within the industry, power that Hogan wielded with a firm hand. One of the most frequently cited criticisms of Hogan was his reluctance to put over other wrestlers. In wrestling parlance, putting someone over means losing a match or allowing another wrestler to shine, which helps elevate their status and build their career. Hogan's apparent refusal to lose to wrestlers he didn't respect or view as worthy made him a divisive figure. This protective instinct around his image often led to tension and resentment among his peers. Two of the most notable wrestlers who clashed with Hogan over these issues were Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, both legends in their own right and beloved by fans for their technical skill and charisma. Bret Hart, a wrestler robbed of his moment. Bret the Hitman. Hart's relationship with Hogan was marked by frustration and disappointment, culminating in one of wrestling's most contentious periods. Hart was an exceptional talent, renowned for his technical prowess and storytelling ability in the ring, and many believed he was deserving of a prominent spot in the WWE main event scene. However, Hogan's dominance often overshadowed emerging stars like Bret. At WrestleMania 9, a pivotal moment in WWE history, Hart lost the WWF Championship under controversial circumstances. In a match against Yokozuna, the samurai-themed giant, Hart was blindsided by Mr. Fuji's infamous salt throw, allowing Yokozuna to win the title. But what frustrated Bret the most was what happened next. Hogan, seemingly out of nowhere, swooped in to challenge Yokozuna immediately after the match and stole the championship. This move infuriated Hart. Hogan, obsessed with preserving his legendary status, refused to drop the title to Bret, who was smaller and still climbing the ranks. Instead, Hogan opted to lose the title to Yokozuna himself, employing outside interference to maintain his aura of invincibility even in defeat. This maneuver effectively sidelined Bret's rise, altering the company's planned trajectory and leaving Hart feeling robbed of a defining career moment. The bitterness lingered for years. Bret held a deep grudge against Hogan for prioritizing his image over the company's future and the careers of deserving wrestlers. Ultimately, this contributed to Bret's painful decision to leave WWE under strained circumstances, a loss that many fans and insiders still lament. Shawn Michaels and the SummerSlam 2005 Incident. When plans went awry. Shawn Michaels, known as the Heartbreak Kid, had his own memorable fallout with Hogan nearly 2 decades later, illustrating the ongoing backstage power struggles that defined Hogan's tenure. The two were scheduled for a highly anticipated rematch at SummerSlam 2005, meant to be a thrilling chapter in a storied rivalry between two wrestling legends. The original plan called for a three-match saga. Hogan would win the first match, setting up a rematch on WWE Raw where Michaels would claim victory, ensuring both wrestlers looked strong. However, Hogan had a sudden change of heart and decided to switch gears, wanting to portray a villain instead of a hero. Adding to the drama, Hogan announced he would only compete in one match due to an injury and insisted on winning that encounter. Feeling betrayed and frustrated by the last-minute changes, Michaels took matters into his own hands by overselling every move Hogan executed during the match. In wrestling, overselling is exaggerating the impact of an opponent's moves to enhance the drama. Michaels' actions sent a clear message, creating an awkward and contentious spectacle rather than the epic showdown fans had expected. Though Hogan emerged victorious, the match's legacy was tainted by backstage tension and unmet expectations, further illustrating the challenges of navigating Hogan's dominant presence in the locker room. Brutus Beefcake, from best friends to bitter rivals. One of the most personal and tragic backstage stories involves Hogan's longtime friend and ally, Ed Leslie, better known to fans as Brutus Beefcake. Their friendship stretched back to the 1970s when both wrestlers were cutting their teeth in smaller wrestling territories under various ring names. Beefcake even played the role of Hogan's kayfabe storyline brother, Dizzy Hogan, during their early days. When Vince McMahon catapulted Hogan to stardom in the 1980s, Brutus Beefcake benefited from their close association, receiving significant pushes and high-profile matches. His debut in WWE saw him transition from heel, villain, to fan favorite, and he even co-main evented SummerSlam 1989 alongside Hogan, facing the likes of Randy Savage and the formidable Zeus. Beefcake's relationship with Hogan opened doors that might have otherwise remained closed. But their friendship began to deteriorate in the 2000s. After Hogan moved to WCW, he used his influence to get Beefcake signed as well, leading to a heel turn where Beefcake adopted personas such as the Butcher and later the Zodiac in the infamous Dungeon of Doom faction. Though Beefcake continued to work with Hogan, tensions simmered beneath the surface. The friendship's unraveling became public when Beefcake revealed in his memoir and on podcasts that they were no longer on speaking terms. The reasons were murky, but included allegations of infidelity. Beefcake accused Hogan of having an affair with his ex-wife, and disputes over personal boundaries. Beefcake also recounted an incident where Hogan suggested pursuing a relationship with Beefcake's new partner Missy, which she declined, igniting Hogan's anger. Jesse Ventura and the Broken Brotherhood. Another significant chapter in Hogan's backstage controversies involves Jesse "The Body" Ventura, a wrestler turned commentator and politician. Ventura and Hogan were close friends and wrestling partners in the early 1980s, having worked together in the American Wrestling Association, AWA. Their shared admiration for superstar Billy Graham influenced their flamboyant, charismatic characters, and they trained together, supporting each other's careers. However, their friendship disintegrated in the 1990s amid a bitter legal battle. Ventura sued WWE for royalties, claiming he was owed money from merchandise sales and earnings related to his commentary work. During the civil trial, Vince McMahon accused Ventura of trying to start a wrestlers' union, a move that Hogan reportedly opposed, siding with McMahon. Ventura felt deeply betrayed, believing Hogan had switched sides to protect his own interests. This perceived betrayal severed their friendship completely. Ventura publicly criticized Hogan for years, using interviews and appearances to air grievances and warn other wrestlers about Hogan's disloyalty. When Hogan joined WCW in 1994, rumors swirled that one of his conditions was the firing of Ventura, which eventually happened, further fueling the animosity. The two exchanged subtle jabs for years, including when Hogan appeared on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno in 1998 wearing a feather boa as a nod to Ventura's signature style, a move seen as a sly dig. Ventura, who later became governor of Minnesota, retorted publicly, even insinuating that some wrestlers, including Hogan, might be frauds about their military service claims. The legacy of a complex icon. Hulk. Hogan's legacy is a rich tapestry woven from dazzling triumphs, high-profile controversies, complex friendships, betrayals, and moments of public redemption. His candid steroid admission shattered the glossy image of wrestling's larger-than-life personas, exposing a world where relentless physical pain, fierce personal ambition, and intricate backstage politics constantly collided. Beyond his public persona, Hogan's relationships backstage were often strained, marked by power struggles, fractured friendships, and clashing personalities, revealing a more complicated and human side to the man behind the iconic handlebar mustache. Despite the controversies that clouded parts of his career, Hogan's influence on professional wrestling is nothing short of monumental. He transformed the sport from a niche attraction into a global cultural phenomenon during the 1980s and beyond, captivating millions with his charismatic presence, unmistakable voice, and heroic persona. Hogan's impact reaches far beyond the ring. He helped shape wrestling's entertainment style, drawing mainstream attention and paving the way for future stars. Yet, like all legends, his story is layered with contradictions, greatness intertwined with flaws. This complexity is what makes Hulk Hogan such a compelling figure in wrestling history. Not just a hero on screen, but a deeply human character whose journey embodies both the heights of fame and the pitfalls of power. Want daily knowledge drops? Subscribe now. Your brain will thank you later.